Hey YouTube, this is Lorelia. I know it's been a while since I've actually did a live with my phone. Just recently, just got off of a live, but I did a live stream from my desktop, and so I'm doing a video here with my phone. And I thought I'll title this. It's not a continuation of the conversation. I just did a video on my desktop, and that video was on hacking finance, and so this is a slight um, continuation of it, but kind of want to go deeper. So I think the way that I'm going to do these is I'm going to do these lives on my phone to go kind of deeper on what I was talking about. So in this video, I'm talking about the power of equity. And so the running conversation always in the real estate space, and of course, I guess we have to give credit to Robert Kiyosaki, because I think he was the only one who pretty much made it a popular statement. Maybe Robert Allen too, but I want to say who really brought it to the masses about the home that you own. If you have a single family home that you actually have yourself, that's not an investment property, is it a real estate asset? And so many people say, no, it's not an asset, it's a liability because you're not getting any income from it. You're paying out money. And if that's the way that an individual wants to look at it, I guess that would be right. When you think about from an accounting standpoint, and me being a former accountant, yes, that is the case. Assets bring money into your pocket, and liabilities is money out of your pocket. And so just recently I was on Threads, and so the conversation came up again, and a person asked this question, and it was all these people who were given their insight on if you have a primary home, if it's a real estate investment, no, is it an asset or liability? And so this is my thoughts, and I think a lot of times is that there's no context to things. I totally get the conversation that if you have a primary home, it can't be an asset because money is going out if you're not receiving money from it. So, of course, if it's a single family home and it's just your family living in it, or if that family is just you and you're not receiving any income, it's not an asset. But can we kind of take into account equity? And although equity takes time, equity is not something that immediately you get, but it is something. Hey, how you doing, Dom? Equity is something that, during the time that you hold on to that asset, it begins to build up, and there's power to it. And I know a lot of times many people do not know the power and the leverage that you can have with equity. I'll never forget, I had a client who was seeking capital to start their real estate business. And they were going outside of themselves looking for capital, looking to get a loan, looking to, leverage credit, what have you. And one of the most overlooked areas was the equity in their home. Now, once again, I'm treading on a very sensitive topic because that strategy could be a very powerful strategy. That's why I get when people say your home is not your asset, but if you have equity in it, it can allow you to buy other assets. So that particular person, client of mine, had a primary home that had 25 years of equity, because at the end of the day, real estate always increases. The person bought the home in 1998. Say what you want. We've went through many economic cycles since 1998. That person still had that home even during the real estate crash of 2008. That person still had that same home during the worldwide pandemic in 2020. Never touched a bit of equity. Never took out a home equity loan. Never did a refinance. They just built up all this equity. Now, of course, this asset is in New Jersey, where values are high. The person had over $300,000 in equity to leverage. You say what you want. I get it, a primary home is not an asset. I get it that money that you pay out is a liability, but there's power in equity. There is big power in equity. But as always, some things are not for everybody, because some people don't have the financial discipline to be able to leverage equity. So that's why you have a lot of financial professionals who will tell you, especially the Dave Ramsey types, don't touch the equity in your primary home. And you know what? They are right. Because the equity in your home is no good, because the equity in my home is no good because I can't upgrade homes. I mean, well, that's all perspective, Dom. That's all perspective. If you feel like you can't do anything, um, it is because maybe you don't have enough. Because that can be the case. Dom, you may have bought the home a year ago. I don't know all the specifics. And maybe the values haven't increased enough for you to leverage it. So that may be the case. I get that. But can we go back to what I was just saying? Dom, I know one thing. If you're telling me you bought your home 20 years ago and you've never did a refi and you've never did tapped in any of the equity, Dom, you have equity in your home. But I get it. If you just bought it last year, no, you don't. So everything is relative, and I'm glad that you made that statement. Everything is relative. So that's why, even though I just said that, I'm glad that that statement in question was asked, because I want to give context. That is possible. You can own something and not have enough equity in it to upgrade. Rightfully so. Dom should know that. But this is what I'm going to know. And this is without me knowing Dom, knowing his situation. I know Dom has not owned that particular home that he has for 30 years. He hasn't. He hasn't even owned it for 10 years. Because even with 10 years, there's still some equity, considering that it's not an interest only loan. Once again, another caveat. Considering it's not an interest only loan, because if it's interest only, you haven't paid any of the principal. Hey, how you doing, Chris Turner? Hey. And I don't know who Cheryl is, but I'm not Cheryl. I'm not Cheryl. But anyway, yeah. So considering that it is a regular fixed mortgage, where, of course, every new no problem, Chris. No, I'm not Cheryl. I'm Lorraine. If it's a regular fixed mortgage, um yes, you have the ability to pay things down and everything. But if it's interest only, it don't matter, how long you've had the home. But most interest only loans are no more than about 10 or 15 years. So, it's not normal for an interest only loan to be longer than 10 to 15 years. But of course, I mean, there's always flukes in the system. There's many mortgage, products out there in the marketplace. But yeah, what's your thoughts? I know I have a few people on. I know Dom, he gave me a statement. Is it better to rent or to own? It depends on your goals. It's no one size fits all solution. So Chris, it really depends on what it is that you want to do. Now, this is what I these are my feelings, and I'm glad Chris brought that up. Someone recently posted, I saw on believe on Facebook, and someone posted about the cost of real estate and how it is more expensive, of how expensive housing is. These are my thoughts, and I don't care where you live. I don't claim to know every state, but the ability to get approved for a rental apartment or any type of rental structure is harder than you getting a home. And let me just talk about that for a second. I want to unpack that. When you are getting a home, and I know every state is different, but I know here in New Jersey they are notorious for it. These landlords are going, that's why it's important to know the laws of your state, because with so many brand new structures being built all over the country, many landlords or these housing corporations that rent to people have gotten absorbent. I mean, it's to the point now they want you to pretty much give your first newborn. I mean, between how your credit has to be, nobody wants to talk about that, but your credit got to be intact. Your job situation has to be intact. The amount of money you need to put down has to be intact. It's getting very difficult. Now, like I said, every market is different, but a lot of the main markets, like the New Yorks, the New Jerseys, the DCs, Charlotte, North Carolina, Atlanta, Miami, over on the West Coast, California, those places, they're not Houston, Texas. They're not easy places to rent. With that being said, you buy a home, the mortgage broker or the mortgage lender or the bank, whoever you're going to get the financing from, they don't care about where you previously lived. Because another thing that I left out is that a lot of times these rental places, they want to know how you lived previously. They want to talk to your former landlord. See, when you trying to get a mortgage, it's nobody, the mortgage broker, lender, bank, whoever you go to, they're not going to say, "Can we talk to your landlord and see what your landlord says about how you was living?" As long as you meet the parameters, and if you a first time home buyer, and of course, I don't specialize in working with first time home buyers. I work primarily with real estate investors. But if you're a first time home buyer, there's a lot of things that you have on your side. If you a vet, you get you a VA loan, no percentage. I mean, you don't put no down payment down. Rates are very favorable. And then, of course, if you are a veteran, you don't pay any taxes. That's all across the country. You don't get those deals. You don't get those deals as being a renting a place. If you a veteran, oh well, you still got to meet the parameters of the place to get the rental apartment. I mean, yes, some places do favor veterans, but it's not all that. Um, then once again, if you are looking for a house and you get an FHA loan, 580 credit score, 3.5% down, you can own a home. Good luck with trying to get an apartment now, a decent place with a 580 credit score. Where you gonna live, in a trap house? It ain't gonna be, it ain't gonna be the best place. So at the end of the day, going back to what Chris, question Chris asked, I know I unpacked a lot, but it really depends on your goals. But in the scheme of things, it is easier to buy a house than it is to rent. I don't care what you say. The only difference is the mindset shift that has to occur, especially if you are not exposed. Because this is what I find: the biggest reason why people rent most of their adult life is because it's a mindset shift. It's the days are going to redlining. Like I get there are still discriminatory practices. I'm not going to say they don't exist, but they're not like they were 50 years ago with redlining and everything. So now a lot of those psychological conditions that were placed on your parents and your grandparents were passed on to you, but they don't no longer exist. They're not even in existence. So the reason why a lot of people stay renters is because they psychologically, it's not inherent, meaning that it's the law. It's psychologically they feel like it's not possible. So they just need it. A lot of times it's just a switch that needs to just go off to know that it is possible for them to become a homeowner. Because if you've never seen, especially if you come from public housing, this is no shade to public housing, but if all you've ever saw is your family and your family members living in public housing, and I know this is an uncomfortable conversation because, like I said, it's all psychological. You may think that it is not even possible. So yes, I'm here to tell you it is easier to be a homeowner than it is to rent. The only thing is that you just have to decide and make the psychological switch to say, I want to be a homeowner. Yes, I agree, Chris. Conversation needs to be had more. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing more. I'm gonna start doing more of these lives on my phone because I find that I can reach more people here on YouTube live on my phone than I can with my desktop. So tell a friend to tell a friend. Share. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to my YouTube. And my goal is to talk about these things every day for at least a month, because it's a conversation that has to be had. Um, like I said, the psychological chains that are on a lot of times our minds, those are harder to break than the how to because I tell anybody it's not hard to buy a house, but it takes discipline. Because right now in your local market, and I don't know where you live, Chris, but there is someone who is putting together a first time workshop, a first time homeowners workshop, whether it's a local real estate agent, a local real estate broker. They're holding the workshops, and a lot of times with those workshops, it's to help you to be able to put things in place for you to become a homeowner. Some of them are so savvy that they even will tell you grant programs that are out there to assist you with getting down payment. So that's why I said this is not your grandmother's or your mother and father's rodeo. Like all those redlining inherit rules are out there. Yeah. So Chris, you said you were in Oklahoma. Okay, so Oklahoma, there is someone in your local market. If you just Google first time home buyers in whatever city or town that you are at in Oklahoma, find out where they're being held and go to them, because it's just a matter of you immersing yourself in a community where people are talking about being a homeowner, how to become a homeowner. Because, like I said, if you historically have never come from that, meaning, you didn't grow up in a home, grandma and grandpa didn't have a home, or auntie and uncle, and all you've been around is people just renting, you may think is really hard. And I'm here to tell you it's easy. The hardest part is you believing that it's possible, because a lot of times it's easier to pay a mortgage than it is with rent, and the protections that you have available to you as a homeowner. Well, that's a whole nother conversation. Like, I can just do a video just on that. There's protections that you have in place, because the one thing that you never can control as a tenant is them going up on rent. Just because you could pay the rent today don't mean in a year or 2 years or 5 years from now the rent won't go up. The rent gonna go up, because at the end of the day it's a business. That rents aren't gonna stay the same for 30 years. But the great thing about being a homeowner, you lock in the rate, you comfortable with that rate, you comfortable with that payment, it'll stay steady. Going back to what I originally talked about the client of mine owned a home 30 plus years, paying less than $1,000, paying less than $1,000 here in New Jersey. So regardless of prices going up, everybody's talking about everything is so high, the price of everything is so high, but the mortgage stays steady. The mortgage stays steady. Can't say that about the rent. Can't say that about the rent. There's no landlord gonna promise you that for the next 3 years you're locked in. Very rarely. And if it is 3, it definitely is not gonna be 5. So those are things to consider. One thing about me, I'm always going to be for ownership. That's why I started this conversation with people going into what's an asset, what's a liability, owning a home. At the end of the day, the part that no one talks about is the equity buildup that you can gain. Yep. Thank you so much for not. Yeah. No, no, no. Like I said, if you, clearly, of course, you're on YouTube. I share a lot of this information here on my channel, and my goal, like I said, is to do more of these lives from my phone, because I can reach more people. Yep. So please subscribe, and share with a friend. You tell a friend to tell a friend. But yeah, so that is what I've been already on for 23 minutes. If anybody have any more questions, I'll ask, but pretty much are we talking about the power of equity. And I started off this conversation talking about everyone is always, the conversation always comes up about a primary home. Is a primary home an asset or a liability? But I was talking about one of the things that most people don't talk about, and that has to do with the equity buildup that you can receive and that you can leverage. So that's what I was talking about in this video. But if I don't have any more questions, I definitely glad that some of you all have joined me and you have asked questions. It's been some years since I've did this style of YouTube videos, but my goal is to do more of them so I can reach more people. But let's continue having this conversation. Thank you, Dom. Thank you, Chris, for chiming in and asking these questions that you've asked. But yeah, let's have more of these conversations, because, um, we all have the ability, and that's what I talked about in my last live, to build wealth. And it's all about creating, what does wealth look like to you. No one can tell you what wealth is, because at the end of the day, we all have our own, I want to say thermostat when it comes to happiness and fulfillment, as well as with building wealth. And if it's a financial, vehicle to it, that's great. But, um, you know, a lot of times that fulfillment really has to do with you. And if there is a financial vehicle to it, I hope real estate is part of that wealth building vehicle that you plan to use. Of course, there's 100 ways to skin a cat, but that's what I talk about here on this channel. I talk a lot about real estate, leveraging capital, leveraging financing to get you there. And, like I said, I'm looking to have more of these conversations, and I'm looking to be on tomorrow. And let's continue this conversation. Okay. Thank you, everyone who's joined me, and I'll see you in the next video.